Welcome to Top Shelf Tech. I'm Jeremy from the Distillery. Today I'm joined by Ryan Joe and Mike Jenkins, founder, CEO of the Distillery, and a bit of an investor as well, which we want to talk about today.
Cool. Thanks for having me, guys.
Look, just to open up the conversation a little bit, we're all here in our black T-shirts and stuff, and you've come in a pink, fairly corporate-looking, one button open to just relax us a little bit, but shirt. What's up with that?
Guys, look, I'm a big believer in dressing for my day, and the particular people that I'm meeting with today actually like a little bit of a dressed-up look, so here I am.
I like the combination of the pink shirt with the elbow pads. It's kind of old-school corporate with something else.
I like to tip my cap to the older generation at times. You know that, Ryan. But no, I'm not selling out, team. I still believe in Team Distillery t-shirts and apparel. Don't get me wrong.
Cool. Look, one more soft opening. We asked a few people for stories about you. Perfect. And we asked them to rank the top one. What do you think floated to the surface?
Top stories?
Yeah, about Mike Jenkins.
You want to narrow it down?
Well, just notorious stories.
Maybe starting the distillery, or maybe one of the distillery's first Christmas parties. Question mark? I don't know.
No, we didn't actually ask anybody.
That's what you came up with.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Cool. I could have done much worse.
Yeah, we were just waiting for you to tell us, really.
That's actually a bloody good question. I'm going to use that in interviews.
But you did touch on one thing, starting the distillery, and I guess what we're interested to hear a bit more about today is what does it take to start up a new business? How did you find that whole experience?
Sure.
You'd come from, working in IT sales, corporate sales, and then boom, you're starting up a new business.
And what made you do it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the what made me do it is probably a simpler question. For me, I've always loved the teams that I've worked with. People are my business. I absolutely love engaging, regardless if you're the cleaner or the chairman. I love working with those a variety of people. And for me, it was really exciting to be working for companies like IBM and Cisco, and just seeing the intelligence and desire to work together and solve problems. And the reality is, one big problem that came down and hit the entire ICT landscape, and that was, how do we address cloud, or how do we take advantage of cloud? And the businesses that I worked for at the time either had historical investments that they were unwilling to, invest on top of or cannibalize to capitalize on the new opportunity, and or there was probably a lack of desire to actually stray away from the traditional old school way of we've always done it this way and we're making hundreds of millions and everything's fine. Whereas on my personal, I like to think of myself as a challenger. Absolutely can toe the line when need be, where it makes sense, and it depends on the context and awareness. But for me, I just saw this cloud era as something that someone needed to lead in New Zealand, and I couldn't see anybody else doing it. In fact, in Australia and New Zealand, and I just saw an opportunity and tried to grab it with both hands, and that's when we started the distillery.
Was it scary? How did you feel at the time? Was it?
Oh yeah, I mean, So I started the distillery with another guy, Andy Cronin, still very good friends to this day, and him and I, were in very good jobs. comfortable jobs with mortgages, and actually both of us young kids, young families in the big smoke of Auckland, and we all know what it costs to live up here. And so we literally stepped out with our arse hanging in the breeze. I was very fortunate enough to have sold a few shares at times. No, a lot of people, someone asked me the other day in an interview, did I start the Aotearoa with Bitcoin money? No, I didn't. I wasn't mining Bitcoin. It was just your traditional couple of shares here, couple of shares there. But also we built it with foundation customers in mind. So we didn't just go out in a bubble. Andy and I quit our jobs and for a couple of months lived like absolute bums in America. And we toured from the West Coast to the East Coast and back again. Went to every Cloud Slam, Cloud Jam. We went to Boston and we did a EBC with Actifio as one of our strategic partners today, just to really learn the lingo and understand. Well, actually, it was a challenge for us. Did we really understand the problem we were trying to solve for? And then what did our initial solution set need to look like to be relevant globally, but then also bringing that IP back to New Zealand?
You attached that early on to a foundation customer to give you a bit of a soft landing, a bit of a
yeah, we did. We really doubled down, and this, part of my advice for anyone thinking about it is, if you all have relationships, and what I would say is probably our biggest mistake at the Instillery is we didn't capitalise. We were too shy, the classic Kiwi way. We were too shy about leveraging our network and our relationships early on, because we felt like we hadn't earned the right. So one of my big things was, and we did it once, but we never did it again for like 2 or 3 years. We were too embarrassed, whether it was going to a customer and saying, hey, you've got a problem that we've solved over here, and or, Jeremy, you're phenomenal talent. We would love you to come for work for us. It took a long time for us to feel like we had earned the right to go and say, lads, leave your great jobs, come work for us, question mark on what the next 12 months look like. And my advice and my learning is actually you got to back yourself, you got to be brave. And if you've got a good idea and you're a fearless enough leader, but obviously with the governance around it, you should be challenging more and more people to join that revolution, whatever that revolution is.
Cool. Motivation, like these things are hard. So
yeah.
You have good days, you have bad days, you have runs where you lose deals, and that deal was meant to tie you over for the next 3 months. How do you keep going?
Yeah, it's a real interesting one. That motivation is really key for me. I've always been really hungry, and I guess that was sort of bred into me. My parents actually started an IT company, funnily enough. Well, not started one, actually bought into one way back in the 90s, Computerland. So every day, we were biking from school to Computerland, and you just saw that everyday hustle and grind of these young people. And again, it was about phenomenal talent. They weren't all necessarily the best technically minded individuals. They just were amazing people. And so for me, the motivation with the Instillery was to really ride that same culture and passion and build that in, and actually build a team of great humans first. Phenomenal communicators, great humans. And then the fact is, my fundamental belief is you can teach most people most things. And we're like everyone in around the world at that time, we were all learning cloud and automation. So we did it together, and it's been an amazing experience at this point.
So you talked a bit about some of the challenges you faced. At what point in that journey did you realise you're onto something special? Was there a turning point, or was it kind of ups and downs? Or
yeah, we didn't. Again, because we had a couple of foundation clients early on, and we launched with those clients, we didn't have the first year jitters. We didn't have the first year jitters, which I've talked to a number of founders, I've mentored a few people over the last 6 years, and I can see it, when you've got that financial pressure bearing down on you on how you're going to pay the wages each and every month in that first year, that's why I think a lot of them turn off.
And they're thinking in or out.
That's it.
Yeah.
This is, it's like, worst case, we've got to go get a real job again.
Yeah.
But, that's probably a level of the commitment that I've got to the idea or concept as well. Comes back to the bravery and actually going all in. But yes, so for me, we didn't have the first year jitters. In fact, we grew from 3 people to I think 7 people in that first year. Really quickly went to 9, went to 12. It was actually going to 15 that was the biggest potential risk breaking point to our business. And there's lots of books that tell you the magic numbers around 1, 15, 100, 400, and there's different variations of that. But for me, I think it was the fact that no longer can Mike Jenkins be founder. He can't be CEO. He can't be the lead salesperson. He can't be the accountant. He can't be the product manager. And because the reality is, as a founder, you do every single job in the business most days.
So does that that mean that you added overheads as well? So not positions that were directly, working, generating revenue, or out, selling basically.
Absolutely, and that's part of the realization that we're onto something special. Actually, Ryan, it was understanding for us that actually, if we were going to be different and a genuine, unique story, that we had to invest ahead of the curve.
Yep.
So not every investment that we made in the ancillary, even in year 2, 3, and 4, was directly tied to, oh shit, we need to get revenue within the current quarter, half, financial year. And that was very different to what else was going on in the market. We believed in the core so much, we believed in the area that were problems we were trying to solve so much, and we had a bit of clear air to actually create the story ourselves. So by investing meant we maintained that clear air, and it's really got us to the position that we're at today.
So flipping it around a bit, you've also invested in a bunch of early stage companies as well.
Yeah.
What do you look for in that, and where do you start?
Again, I've been really lucky, and actually Jeremy, I owe a lot of my reading. Jeremy tells me what to read, and then I go away and read it. And there's other people and mentors and colleagues that I work with over the years around stuff to read. I've pretty much gone against everything that those books told me to do in terms of P&L, it does look like this, and these the formula, and just my belief there is no recipe, there is no template that you can just drop onto a company and go, that's magic, here we go. I really back a jockey over a horse. That's how I talk about it. Like I said, I'm a people person. When I see a good blend of passion and a big brain, those are two things that gets me really excited about a potential startup or even a new leader in a big business corporate, because we're seeing a bit of a transition and digital transformations coming through in there. So I do look for the jockey, and it's usually a founder and maybe even a founding team more and more these days, that I go, absolutely, is the problem something that's that has hyperscale, not a niche, and also the jockey. Who are the jockeys riding these horses, and that's what I look for.
So that point there, like not just one person, a team, is that what's caused you to shift that sort of approach? Is that about scale or ability to execute?
Yeah, I think it's about ability to capture opportunity.
Okay.
So one of the things that I've seen, and again, I definitely do not profess to be the expert in this, but just from my own personal experience, I have seen individual founders go out with a massive problem area and an amazing solution, and an individual cannot scale. Because what happens is when the market gets wind of the solution and you, as a person that can solve it, you cannot be at every single meeting, even in the first year, second year, third year. So the reason I say team, and I'm a big believer in a founding team, and with unique characteristics in that team, is because it allows you to scale, it allows you to elevate multiple brands, multiple personal brands out there with your team brand, your company brand, and I think that allows you to go faster earlier. One of the challenges, and sorry to sort of dance around it, but one of the challenges I initially had at the Instillery, and it's actually a challenge every day, as a founder, is how do we elevate the rest of the team's personal brands out past my own? Because in many people's minds today, the Instillery is still me, and obviously now my business partner, Mike Russell, but it's a lot more. There's 200 people in this engine every day thinking, how can we be better? How can we deliver a better experience for our customers? So how can we elevate their brands out and up? And again, it's more challenging as you get bigger, but I think if you can do that early on, and it's not just one face and one voice, that allows you to be more dynamic as well and evolve faster. Yeah.
So you talked a bit about the trigger points and when you start hiring more people, when you've got to get beyond that point. As a startup founder, at what point do you start looking for investment? Is there...
Yeah, and again, I think it differs. Well, we started off very much as a services startup, so we didn't have a product. Lots of the software SaaS companies that I work with and have invested in, there's a massive upfront development cost. And it might be some shadow midnight dev team, where they've got a day job and they're cutting code at night, and maybe a variation of that with some professional services freelancer thrown in. Or actually some of these software companies go out and they're building this stuff for a couple of years. They believe in it that much that then that problem they're trying to solve, my experience is that changes. The problem space changes really rapidly. So they have to pivot and evolve really quickly and then launch a product to market. And I think that's the big downfall of software companies. Rather than taking a completely valid proof of value or trial or to a friendly user group of clients and then co-creating the end product with them, they're building it in a lab, in a bubble, in a bedroom somewhere over here. And by the time they actually launch the perfect product, it's too slow. The opportunity's gone, the market's moved. Some big company's gone and started something and given it away for free. And coming back to the services company, which is why I love services as a business, as a sector, it's a people business, but it's really less about, it's not a linear throw 10 more people at the problem to get 10 times revenue. It's how do you actually create value for customers and solve meaningful problems that actually allows you to grow with massive scale way above a linear line.
So, MJ, you've got a great network. You've got you've had these opportunities to invest. Maybe you want to just talk us through a couple of your other investments. But for most people, if they're looking at, how can I invest? How can I get into, tech on that level, right? We've got property in New Zealand, and we like to invest in that. We've got the NZX. We don't like to invest in that so much. But people are quite, genuinely, I think, quite interested in these tech startups. So, firstly, a little bit around your other pieces that you want to share, but also how do you find these things?
Sure, yeah. Again, I think for me personally, it's really about staying connected to the ecosystem. Like New Zealand probably has the hottest startup scene out of any region or around the world that I've been involved in. And when I say hottest, it's not Silicon Valley. We would love to genuinely say, we've got the Silicon Valley of Asia Pacific maybe, or ANZ, but there's so many hotbeds of talent. And what we're seeing is more and more Kiwis go, actually, you know what? Starting something is a viable career for me. And maybe having 3 or 4 startups in a career. And so what I like to do is stay connected to those networks. It's a big reason why I've got involved with Callaghan, NZTE, and there's some great organisations doing great work. The Ice House are great ambassadors for a number of startups. Even places like the Beehive, shared working spaces now, say great things around the people, and the businesses that they're hosting. But more than anything, it's just staying connected online. All this information's everywhere. People are asking questions, asking for help. I'm in a bunch of New Zealand tech startup forums on Facebook, and people ask questions, and I always throw it back. If they've got a survey about a product they're building, I always connect. And through that, actually, probably more than anything, through the social world and digital channels, I've really connected with some amazing young entrepreneurs from as young as 14, 15 in the agri-tech space and drone space to organisations like Node, which the founder, Richie Waldman, and I have invested in, which is an IoT platform which solves a number of challenges from sort of asset tracking and monitoring to on-farm services and even our fisheries.
And that's you talked about founding a services company. That's a software
100%
startup, right?
platform play, yeah. So absolutely a software platform, SaaS, all built in the public cloud, massively scalable and going really well.
Cool.
So you talked a bit about, the industry and how you create entrepreneurship. What do you think the difference is between somebody who's got a great business idea and somebody who actually goes and pursues it?
Balls. 100%. I mean, lots of people have good ideas. I've heard them. They bring them to me, and I validate them. And then 3 years later, I always, I'll see something in the media. I'll be like, oh, that's right. That kid had that idea 3 years ago. And then you see this $500 million acquisition, somewhere in Europe or Australia, and that to me is frustrating. But at the same time, bravery is a unique characteristic in people. I think it's a really important one. But I also see people go the other way and take shit ideas and take them and run for the hills with them. And I think there's a balance, and that comes back to, I guess, probably some of the reasons why I think you need to have a trusted network around you. Even if they aren't your founding team members, you need to be able to have a trusted group of people that you go, I absolutely trust your opinion. While they might not be all in, they'll give you a real grounding reality check like Kiwis can only do on the merits or not. And then it's up to you to digest that, go away, think critically about it, and then decide if you still want to go. But if you're doing it in a bubble, it's a tough gig.
So that courage, that bravery, is
the
that...
balls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Is that about, you think, fear of failure, being seen as a failure? Do you think it's about fear of putting your own wallet on the line? What do you think is is there one common factor that you say, would see and say, look, if people could just get over that, they'd probably be able to take a punt and...
In my experience, again, I think a lot of people that I talk to, that the reason they didn't follow through is largely because they think they've only got one shot at it.
Yeah, okay.
It's about, hey, if I'm going to leave this career, and usually most of them have got great careers, whatever it might be, or they might be a youngster with huge potential ahead of them, they're worried that will be a scourge on their personal brand and either make them less horrible, less attractive, but also they genuinely think they've only got one shot. So is this the one that they go all in on or not? And then they just stay the course.
What's really interesting, when a few years ago, fairly well-known New Zealand tech investor made the comment to me that, they looking at opportunities. Do they put $1 million one way, or do they put $100,000 10 ways? Right? Yeah, and it's I think some of that's just that different mentality.
Yeah,
right?
that's right. And then I think more in New Zealand, it's even less about. And I know, and I share Rebette's views around tall poppy syndrome, and there's so much noise around the work that we've done as the Instillery, startups that we've been involved in, and just the whole New Zealand tech scene, which people just need to get over themselves and actually get in behind it and support. And I think if we create an ecosystem and a group of leaders that actually foster the innovation, and rather than trying to shoot everything down in the early stages and actually trying to build this thing up, it's just going to be better for everyone. And I think that will dilute some of the potential fears and reservations of these guys and girls who actually got amazing concepts, and actually enable them to push them in and go faster and harder, and actually we'll have even more buoyant tech startup scene. The last thing I'd say in New Zealand, which is slightly unique, there's lots of young families in New Zealand relative to other startup ecosystems that I've been involved in, particularly in Australia. There's lots of older people coming out of careers and going back and solving problems that their corporate couldn't. Whereas in New Zealand, it seems to be a lot of young, I'm talking 40 and under, with young families. So that whole family vibe and dynamic, and imagine that, and I had to do it. My wife, Angie, I think she was pregnant with our second kid, Tamara, and we've had one older boy as well. And so I went to her and I said, hey, look, I know I've just moved back from Sydney to New Zealand, and I bet you're happy about that. But I'm going to leave this pretty sweet gig that I've got going here at Cisco, and I'm going to do a startup. And to a pregnant lady, these conversations are very difficult. And I'm not sure if that's too controversial. But again, I was just very lucky to have a supportive partner and family around me, as well as friends and a network that actually said, you know what, you've got this. Yep, I agree. And let's go together. And that's really important. And I still think that young family vibe is a large reason potentially why a lot of Kiwis don't pull the trigger.
Do you also think that's part of why you're successful, having that support network? Like you talked a bit about having the right ecosystem to support the tech startups. You talked about the right networking, but what other factors would you say are kind of critical to success of a startup?
Yeah, I think, and it's sort of taking myself out of it more from an observation perspective. There's lots of people that are well connected, okay, in industry. There's private school, chapters running around Auckland and New Zealand. I don't think that's the key. That's not the magic. People go, I bet they've got underground networks and doing handshake deals, and that's why they got to where they are. I think that's just an extension of tall poppy syndrome, man. The reality is, if you're a good human working on stuff that's important, that matters, people will take notice. But you've got to tell your story. You've got to be prepared to put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone and tell your story, because no one else is going to do it for you. I mean, now it's awesome. We've got platforms like Switch, to enable us to do that. But I really think that, I think that's a big deterrent at the moment.
So to somebody who's been sitting on the couch watching Silicon Valley, dreaming of their own, own sort of investment portfolio, founding a startup, having this, great life. If there was one piece of advice that you'd give them, if they're thinking if they want to invest in tech startups, what would that be? Where would they get started?
That's a very good question. I haven't thought about it prior to this point. For me, if you want to get started, I'm a big believer in writing it down. Writing it down and test yourself, test your own thinking. And it's something that I only really got into actually after I started the Instillery.
Is that a business plan, or is that write your headline? There's different approaches to this,
So I'm a big believer in writing the end game.
Yeah.
So what is the impact? So, so you've started a business a year from today, 5 years from today. Write the newspaper headline that shows the impact that you've had on the problem area you're trying to solve, and write a story like it would be front page of the Herald or back, inside cover, front page of the Business News. Tell that story in a way that, and then read it back to yourself and go, did I make a big enough difference? Is that a copy, repeat, Me Too story? Yeah. Or is it something brave and genuinely unique? And I think that's the real test. You have to really take an independent view of your idea and your concept and go, is it truly unique? Yes or no? Or is it just something better, an enhancement of something that already exists? And you know what? People have made money from that. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying in a market like today, something needs to really stand out from the crowd and be unique. And so that's my number one. Make sure it is, and make sure you get advice, and don't put yourself in an echo chamber where everybody's saying whatever you say. That's key.
Awesome, man. That's a pretty good soundbite to wrap up on. So, thanks a lot for
Cool.
Joining us, having a yarn,
Awesome.
and that was really interesting. Actually, I enjoyed that.
Yeah, me too.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Cool.
guys.
Thanks,
Cheers.
man.
Cheers.